Hi guys, my name is Amish Tripathi and I'm the director of the Nehru Center. The Nehru Center is the cultural wing of the Indian High Commission in the UK, and we've been in existence for many decades, and we organize wonderful events at this very auditorium. You can register for our newsletter at our website nehrucenter.org.uk. You don't need to write them down, they will be displayed at the bottom of the screen. You can also come to our Facebook page, which is a verified page, the Nehru Center. You can follow updates on all our events on Twitter as well, the Nehru Center, that's also a verified account. Or you can come to our YouTube channel, again, the Nehru Center. We are nothing if not consistent. I hope you do come to our online channels and enjoy the events that we're putting up for you. Thank you so much for all your love and support. Namaste, Jai Hind.
Namaste, my name is Amish Tripathi, as you would have just seen in the video prior. I'm delighted by the guests we've got up on stage today for this event. Ravinder Singh is the heartthrob of the Indian youth. If we can have Ravinder up on stage, please, my dear friend Ravinder.
Amish.
Hi Ravinder, how are you? Listen, we are a Sarkari place, so I'm going to do the formalities and read your formal introduction.
Is
Uh,
it? All right.
Ravinder Singh is the best-selling author of more than 6 novels and 2 crowdsourced anthologies. His books have sold over 3.5 million copies to date. His latest Write Me a Love Story, which is what we are launching today. The UK launch today. After having spent most of his life in Burla, a very small town in western Odisha, Ravinder is currently based in New Delhi. He has an MBA from the Indian School of Business. His 8 year long stint at IT started with Infosys and ended in Microsoft, where he worked as a senior program manager. Sounds like a very terribly boring job before deciding to pursue full time writing. Ravinder has also founded and runs a publishing venture called Blacklink, where he publishes and mentors debut authors. Beyond his love for words, Ravinder is also a fitness freak, as you can clearly see. And in conversation with Ravinder will be Richa Mukherjee. If we can have Richa up on stage, please. Hi, Richa. How are you?
Hi, Amish. Doing great. Thank you. Hi, Ravinder.
Yes, Richa, as I told Ravinder as well, we are a Sarkari place, so I have to do the formalities. So, Richa
Absolutely.
Mukherjee is a celebrated blogger and writes for several online platforms. Her first novel, I Didn't Expect to Be Expecting, was a humorous take on the roller coaster ride of pregnancy. She now lives in Mumbai. Richa, Ravinder, pleasure to have you guys on the Nehru Center platform. I believe this is the first time you guys are coming here. But hopefully this will be the first of many more. Before I leave the conversation to the two of you, Ravinder, since this is the UK launch, uh,
Yes.
and since you are a friend of mine, what we
Yes.
have done is we've done a online launch of your book because we don't have the pleasure of ripping the wrapping paper and all that these days. So
Yes.
we're going to show that first. Can we have the
Oh, is
video, please?
that-
Drum roll.
That was fantastic, Amish. Thank you so much. It it felt it felt amazing.
Like a
The
20th
creation.
century fox kind of thing. So, Ravinder, pleasure having you here. I'm going to leave it to you. And Richa Mukherjee, you're in the driver's seat, so it's all up to you now. Over to you, Richa.
Before
Thank you,
before
Amish,
you
for having us here. Yeah.
Sorry,
before
go
you
ahead, Richa.
leave, Amish, I must tell you that I'm a huge fan. And as soon as any new release happens, my father, who's also government service, insists on me hot-footing it to the nearest store to get him a copy. And as a result of which, there are many Sarkari Babus all across India who are big fans as well. And I hope to meet you in person soon.
Thank you so much. Ravinder, utter delight, man, to have you here. Richa, pleasure. And over to you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amish. Appreciate this.
Thank you so much, and good evening, and thank you for joining us today. That was a wonderful introduction, but honestly speaking, I don't think it would be complete for me unless I add a few bits from my end, because the man I'm sharing the screen with is not just a brilliant fellow author, but he is a friend, a mentor, and a publisher who has helped launch many a starry-eyed aspiring writer. He's a prolific storyteller who started his writing journey boldly declaring that he too had a love story, and a decade later he is still writing a love story for his readers as his books fly off the shelves. A gym enthusiast, and often a philosopher. Through his quotable and poignant quotes, sometimes thought provoking, sometimes hilarious posts and videos, and his forever smiling face, as you can see, he has managed to win the hearts of many people and exudes a sort of, I'd say, bright light and warmth that make you sit up and say, hey, I'd like to meet him someday. Today, I will be in conversation, as you already know, with my friend Ravinder Singh, and we shall endeavor to make this informative and entertaining without treating this session as one of our offline, chat
Yes.
sessions. So we shall definitely try to do that.
Thank you
Welcome,
so much.
Ravinder.
Thank you so much for introducing me this way. I don't remember if anybody ever introduced me, and given that we are friends, we know each other, we have worked together. It's a pleasure, Richa. Ever since I discovered you as an author, and now here we are today talking about books.
I'm glad to have made this journey with you. And I think now that the audience sufficiently knows you, and I would even go as far to say they know you too well by now with all these introductions, I'll just move on to my first question, which is essentially about your wonderful new book called Write Me a Love Story, which I finished overnight. I couldn't stop reading. But I was very curious about asking you one thing from the very beginning is about your choice of this particular theme. As writers, we love to keep our cards, close to our chest. And here you are writing a sort of, a tell-all about the publishing industry, about what commissioning editors think about writers, how writers are feuding between each other, amongst each other. So, at did you ever think while deciding on writing this book that maybe the next time I walk down to my publisher's office somebody is going to wag fingers at me, or were you bold and just decided that at this juncture in my life I need to write this book?
Yeah. Um, Ever since I started visiting publishing houses and going on literature festivals, ever since the first book became a bestseller, the frequency with which I would enter a bookstore or be at a literature festival, everything made me realize that one day I want to write a story which is set in this world. I am a writer who writes fiction. There are things around me that I observe. There are things that inspire me. And of course, writers are people who derive inspiration from life, from everything that is unfolding around us. And we land up thinking that, okay, what should be the plot of my next novel? For a good long time, I had this urge, this craving that one day I will write a story. And because I write love stories, I would write a love story which is set in a publishing house. Why? It just goes so nicely with romance, the whole idea of papers, the smell of the book, writing stories. And I felt, who should be my protagonist? If the book is based out of a publishing house, the whole idea, can I make the author and the editor? Now, this is what I observe. I'm an author, I have an editor who works, I've been writing love story. While I was in this process of writing so many books, I realized that can there be, in my head, can there be a story, of course, which is fictitious, but drawn in a way that the author who's writing a love story and the editor who's editing that love story, they both fall in love with each other. They create a new love story altogether. And I want to write that thing. There are some things that inspire me. For example, fitness. I had already written a love story which is based out of a gym. Food, culinary thing. That is my next thing. Dance, for that matter. Perhaps one day there will be a love story which will be set wherein the couple meet each other over a Latin dance, salsa, bachata, which are couple dances. Um, so when I run my head of setting the plot, publishing happened something very natural, something I had lived for past 10 years. And this is why the story was set in a publishing house. And I never ever had this thought that the next time I'm going to walk into a publishing house, somebody is going to raise a finger on me that how did you or why did you land up writing this? On the contrary, on the other side, had somebody tried to stop me also, even then I believe I have earned that place wherein I can follow my heart and set the story. So when I in the acknowledgement section, I landed up acknowledging my editor that I'm so sorry. People are going to draw parallels and perhaps quote that are you that editor? But hey, that's the bottom line of working working with me and editing my work. Yeah.
But isn't the acknowledgement section the very best? Like brevity is not my strong suit, but that is my favorite section because I can write 4 pages of thanking, apologizing, doing whatever I have to, making those speeches that I never actually got to make, like you made to your editor. That's my favorite section. Do you enjoy
Well,
writing the acknowledgement section, or is it? Do you think it's cumbersome?
okay, I enjoy writing the acknowledgement section for two reasons. I am thankful to all these people. I don't think I have. So apart from this, sorry, I had never said sorry on any other note. But the bigger reason why I enjoy writing the acknowledgement section is that I have written my manuscript. The elephant is out. So the charm is like, okay, all of this is done, and whatever is left is acknowledgement section. So once you reach acknowledgement section, it means you have submitted everything out there. So that relief is what makes me enjoy writing the acknowledgement even more. And of course, thanks to all the people who actually read and work. And of course, I get to take the name, but there are these unsung heroes behind a story.
Absolutely.
And I believe every author must acknowledge all the people who have worked on his or her story.
Absolutely. There's a whole army of people,
Yeah.
who are part of this process. Um, I would just like to touch upon the characters a little bit because whether it's Asmita, who's this headstrong commissioning editor, or if this egoistic and full of complexities, this young new author. What I loved about the characters was that they weren't steeped in formulaic, stereotypes. I really enjoyed the fact that they were breathing and thriving in their own complexities, and within all the restrictions and with of their roles and whatever life was throwing at them, and they weren't ashamed of being themselves. And I loved the fact that you did explore that. Having said that, this is like asking a father who their favorite child is, and honestly, parents always have favorites; they just don't admit it. But did you enjoy writing Asmita more? Were you invested in her character more, or was it easy enough for you to be Abhimanyu? Because hey, we've heard enough people asking you on your stories and timelines, saying, "Is Abhimanyu you?" So, was which was easier writing the character, and which were you more invested in between the two?
So easier writing was definitely Abhimanyu. He is an author who writes romance. He goes to gym. He does this literature festival.
Tick tick tick.
So somehow it all naturally came to me. And even the ideology with which Abhimanyu comes out, and he confesses that this is how I think, this is who I am, and I'm not ashamed about things that I believe in. Um, Difficult character was definitely Asmita, but I'm very proud to write about Asmita. One thing which has been common in almost all of my books is that the women happen to be a very strong character. Be it Rupali in Your Dreams Are Mine Now, um, or Lavanya in Will You Still Love Me. Women somehow, and this is how I perceive. Maybe I have run into these women, and maybe I want to celebrate strong women. Is why I am so inclined to write about very strong characters about women. Uh, it was challenging, but very fulfilling to write about Asmita. That she is a woman who is an editor who perhaps would not command that much power over an author who's a celebrated author, and the publishing house
Sure.
is paying him huge advance to get him on board. He gets to dictate these terms, and yet this woman takes a stand that I would rather prefer quitting than editing your work, because the way you are coming to me, making me, do this is not the right thing. So that thrill, um, that power that she commands, and what it does to this author, his male ego somewhere is so hurt that in the end he lands up falling for this very strong woman. Enjoyed penning down because of the challenge that it brings. Yeah.
It's very interesting that you mentioned about the themes, Ravinder, because I understand that as writers, we're sensitive to context, conversations, and our environment. And basically, what is our, the lens with which we view the world percolates down to our writing. It in a sense, it's firmly what you believe in. Like you were talking about, the strong women characters. But since you touch on themes, I was just looking back at all the books that you've written. And all your previous works, whether it's your current book or even belated bachelor party, which was essentially humor, right? But humor
Yeah.
is an instrument to say a lot of important things as well. So what you
Yeah.
manage to always do is you manage to subtly embed a lot of important messages and themes in your work, which can be ranging from social commentary to various aspects of gender dynamics even. So while romance is, obviously the primary factor, a lot of interesting conversations, there's a lot of interesting conversations that are embedded. So when
Right.
you are writing a fresh book, do you go about looking at your environment and saying, okay, I methodically want to, amalgamate this point of view into this book, or is it a very organic process? Does it happen naturally once you've set your mind in the ecosystem of your story?
So I am somebody who sees so many social issues around me. I want to fix them. I always use creativity about all of these issues. It's like I don't take a lot of charm in writing romance. I want to fix things. I want to talk about bring this change. What I do is I sugarcoat the entire message with romance. Will you still love me? Of course, it's a love story. That's what the title says. But deep inside the book, you will see that it's about road safety. Your Dreams Are Mine Now is about somebody taking a stand. The youngsters of this country saying enough is enough. Um, I crave to write about these. And I love the fact that after Will You Still Love Me came out, couples happened to buy helmets and share a picture with the book. That after I finished reading this book, I and my boyfriend decided that we are going to wear a helmet. Somebody said, I'm going to fasten a seatbelt. Whatever is going around me, I feel the impact of it. I feel, why can we not be the number one country on this planet? We are a civilization 5,000 years old. What stops us? We have great schools, we have great colleges. Of course, a lot needs to be done. But how do we change our own selves? And I ask this question to myself: can I use romance as a medium? Because if I go out and say, guys, I want to talk to you about road safety, can you please come? I know you know how many people will come. But if I tell this is a love story, but very subtly I introduce the element of road safety, given hands up changing the life of other protagonists just because we can I make them feel the sense. And I love the fact that I've been able to bring whatever little change it be with the power of my pen.
No, and that's absolutely wonderful because my next question
Favorite.
honestly was
Yeah.
going to be that people love labels, Not because there's any malintention, but because, we draw comfort from labels. We know what to expect. And whenever you are mentioned, what is soon to follow is the king of romance. It's
That's
always about romance. So, I was wondering, do you ever find that restrictive? Because I tend to write humorously across genres, whether I'm writing crime or contemporary drama. I always get asked, doesn't it stifle you that you can't take your flight of fantasy beyond the genre? Do you ever face this problem, or do you think that it is such an expansive space that there will always be a myriad, maybe a plethora of options in terms of telling stories within this space, and there'll never be a dearth of options? For example, Belated Bachelor Party was fantastic. I laughed. It made me think. I took that entire journey with them, and I think you enjoyed that outing as well, from what you told me. So,
true.
firstly, what do you think about this restriction of genre and the bindings that we often find, writers find themselves in? And what else do you think are you going to write, or are you going to diversify a little bit?
You know what? I'm glad you asked this question. Initially, in the initial few days, and I know I exactly remember how this King of Romance title was coined. I was at the Jaipur Literature Festival. I think this goes back 6-7 years back, and the MC on stage has introduced me, and then she welcomed, and then then we have this guy who writes romance. Let me welcome King of Romance, and suddenly the whole crowd went. It was embarrassing for me to be introduced as King of Romance, and I thought I've just written 2 novels by then. Um, so, I cannot control this. It's not in my hands. I did not like it in the initial days because I felt it's going to be restrictive in a way that what if I want to write something else? In fact, my third novel that I wrote was not about romance. It was about childhood. It was about nostalgia of being born and brought up in 1980s and 90s. What was the
Your
world like?
dreams are mine, right?
This is like it happened yesterday.
Like it happened yesterday.
Yeah. So, and I thought this is going to be restrictive. Over a period of time, I realized that I cannot change what people want to talk about, and
Absolutely.
can I instead of being bothered, can I take it in the nice way that I am positioned somewhere that I bring a brand recall of romance. I looked up to Shah Rukh Khan when they say King of Romance out there. I said,
And
no,
why
it's not.
not?
And it's not that bad if in the literary world if this works. Publishers love the fact that we have something as a marketing peg and everything just goes right from their perspective. So I started enjoying it. What I also believe, and Richa, you rightly put that this realm of romance is so vast. I can always bring newer things and talk about it. I cannot. So road safety, for example, is the most non-romantic thing, but I will talk about it in that way. So my idea is that, and yet I would love to challenge myself. So the Belated Bachelor Party was one thing. As an author, I feel that okay, creative people often step outside their comfort level. When I quit my job at Microsoft, the whole idea was that I want to step out of the comfort level, discover new things. And when I would want to challenge my own self, that will I still sell if I write something non-romance? And I will go and find out a story which I would have observed, and I say, okay, my next book is going to be about 4 guys. And forget romance, there won't be a single girl in the entire story. Can I now sell? It's like challenging your own self. And I love that. I landed up writing a book called This Love That Feels Right, in which for the very first time I wrote from a woman's perspective. So it's a first person story. And I start the book by saying, hi, I am Naina Singhania. I'm so and so years old. I'm married. This is my story. It just goes like that. It's always like challenging your own self, breaking the barriers. And somehow I find comfort in it. Otherwise, life will become monotonous. It just will become. And yeah, that's what so I do enjoy the title. I have made up my mind that I'm going to enjoy it. Every time it gets announced, I rather smile now, and not just superficially, but deep down inside. Okay, if people are celebrating you for something, take it, embrace it. That's the whole idea.
No, that's a great attitude, because you can't live your life changing perceptions, but then you can do enough to just make people think about you in whatever way they, as long as they have a positive association with you. Because you
Yeah,
mentioned your
meanwhile,
part. Sure, sure.
meanwhile, there are a lot of people who are actually, asking questions, and Sangeeta and
Oh,
Akanksha, thank you so much. Somebody was asking something, I just forgot. We'll come to the questions, but please keep
so
your questions and feedback coming. I'm
yes,
reading as
I
I am
think,
looking at the
yeah,
questions.
I think Krish Bora was asking about, firstly, thank you for, there's a lot of nice, sweet congratulations coming in.
Yeah.
And Krish Bora was asking about your writing process. So, Krish, I am going to, how can we have, be speaking to a writer and not, in being interviewed by a writer, not touched upon the writing process? So, we're definitely getting to that for sure. And Ravinder, as and when, if you see anything, please let me know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, because you were mentioning about your past,
Hmm.
I have two quick questions about it. I've always been curious. So we all know that you started your writing journey with this intensely personal account of love and loss, and that
Yeah.
is why the entire, I guess, the entire country and a large part of the world start connected with this wonderful story. We all think that we have a book in us and we have a story in us,
Hmm.
but once you're done writing that story, all the trepidations of the world, the mental machinations take over, and that is where the reluctance sets in and says, "Oh my God, okay, now I can't go beyond this." What is it that drove you from saying, "Hey, I've finished a book which I personally think is wonderful," to driving you to the point where you sat on the footpaths of Connaught Place just to ensure that that book got out to the world? What drove that ambition? Where did that drive come from for somebody who had an IT background and had just written their first book? So I really wanted to ask you about this.
Yeah. You're talking about I Too Had a Love Story, my first book.
Yes, your first book.
Uh,
Yes.
which is also published in the UK by a native publisher, is in circulation out there just because we are on a UK launch of my current book. Um, I didn't know how to deal with my life after I lost my then girlfriend. I was 26 years young. First time had fallen in love, wanted to marry this girl, and in the same week that we were supposed to get engaged, things happened. I lost her. So the trauma really took a toll over me, and you can imagine the fate of somebody who has held the hands of the girl for the very first time and had planned the entire future with her. I just didn't know how to survive. I had to give myself a reason to survive. And every night I would cry myself to sleep. It went on and on and on for 3 months. I was working with Infosys back then. And then one day I decided enough is enough. I need to come out of it. And my idea was that I have to vent it out, this steam. Otherwise, I'll burst like a pressure cooker. I have to vent it out. And it became a very natural instinct. It just was a very natural instinct that I want to relive my courtship period one more time. That, okay, she is gone. I kind of waged a battle in my mind with God. You wait and watch. You took her away. I will bring her back in my own way. That was the whole instinct with which I started writing. Random pages. I started how I met, what I'm feeling right now. It just began that way. I had not read a single book till day as I was writing. So I became a writer first and then I became a reader. I had absolutely zero thing. I mean, today I had quit my job at Microsoft to write books. Have written 11 books by now. But back then, this is my background. Once I was done writing, the whole idea was to find a publisher. I had submitted. I was a nobody. I had written to publishing houses. This is year 2007. Not many publishers were still accepting digital submission. They wanted the paper wala manuscript. So I would courier them. It was A4 size paper. Uh, I was rejected. Many publishers didn't even bother to send the rejection mail. I landed up at the premises of one of the publishers, which was my last hope. And I was literally thrown out of the publishing house because I was anywhere calling them multiple times, writing them so many emails. None of that would get a response. So I boarded Shatabdi, landed up in Delhi, found out where this publishing house is, and that was a weekday. This was a multinational publishing house, so they also had a Saturday and Sunday off. So I landed up at their premise on Monday morning, and then I was actually moments later after the chat, I was thrown out because I was telling them that, okay, if you have rejected my work, can you please return those papers back to me, because I fear that somebody will misuse the story. Look at the confidence of this guy who thought that a rejected story can be misused and somebody is going to, print it and publish it in his or her own name. But I was mad. I was madly in love. I still am, and I thought that this my tribute to my dead girlfriend should not be treated in a manner that it deserves a book. That's how I felt. So once I was thrown out of the publishing house, uh, I pledged. हिंदी में हम कहते हैं कि वो जिद पाल लेना, तो मैंने वो जिद पाल ली थी उस मोमेंट में that no matter what, I will get this book published. The next instinct was that I came to Delhi again the second time. Next week, I now went to Connaught Place. There I found footpath vendors, and I thought, okay, my book may not be in Oxford and crosswords of this country. Can I talk to the footpath people? And will they be kind enough to keep my book? So I literally tapped the shoulder of one footpath book vendor, and he looked up and then said, क्या चाहिए? I said, नहीं चाहिए नहीं.
आपको देना है.
कि आप ये किताब मेरी रख सकेंगे अगर मैं लेके आऊंगा. And then he thought आप distributor हो. I said नहीं, I'm the author. He didn't understand what an author is. He's an uneducated guy who's selling books and making money out of it. But he said अगर बिक जाएगा तो पैसा ले लीजिएगा. And I was like, okay, this one guy, the very first guy to say a yes to my project, while everyone has said no. So my hopes were like, okay, I'm going to give you 5 books. And then I calculated how many footpath vendors are there in the entire circle of CP. I imagined how many more would be there in Delhi. So somehow my retail was ready. I was mad. I was mad that this has to be done. I was that mad. And once my retail was set, the whole idea was that how I'm going to self-publish it. I happened to find where are these NCERT, CBSE, Tata McGraw-Hill books are published. I got to know of a place called Daryaganj. Daryaganj is a paper town in Delhi. I was there and there were like papers everywhere. It doesn't look that way today, but 15 years back, 13, 14 years back, it used to be like that. And there were like rickshawalas taking books and papers and everything out there. And I said, okay. And then I happened to find a very small printing shop. It was just like a photocopy machine shop. Because I thought he's going to charge me the least if I go to a small list shop. I was there and I asked him, how much would you charge me if I have to get 500 novels published? That was an era. I was talking about 500 copies that I, in my head, would call myself a best-selling author if I sell 500 copies.
Why not?
Today, that book, I Told a Love Story, has sold more than 1 million copies. Put together everything else, other copies happened, 3.5 million. I love that fact that I did not give up. I love the fact that I was a crazy person who wanted this so bad that I am here today.
We love the fact that you didn't give up, but interesting. I wanted to ask you, have you ever been to CP and checked if one of those gentlemen is still around? Do they recognize you?
I don't even recognize the person. I do recognize that feel. Every time I am there, that moment comes back to me. What it was like back then. What it was like to get to hear a yes. Even though he would have said it just like that. He said a yes to me. So
sometimes all it takes is that one smile and one yes. And
Yeah.
I have a personal connection to you for that. All it takes is one smile. Sometimes people pulling your legs like you pulled mine before saying that yes, and then things change. So
Yeah.
sometimes you need to just have a little bit of faith.
Now that we are talking about it, let me just recall that incident. Richa and I happened to meet at one of the book awards, Crossword Award, I think was that in Bombay where you live.
Times of India, the
Okay.
writing, yeah.
So we were there, Right India.
Right India.
Yeah. So even Amish was a part of it. The same.
Yes,
session.
I remember walking past Amish.
So I remember Richa reached out. I was just moving out among all the other 10 authors. We were 11 authors on panel, and we were moving out. And Richa happened to, just come and talk to me about her book. And I said, submit it to Blacklink. I published debut authors, and she happened to submit it. And weeks or months later, I happened to read her. I loved it. But to Richa, I said on call, it's okay-ish. And she was like, okay, so that means a rejection. And I said, yes, it's a rejection. And then um, I think moments later in the same call towards the end, I said, I was telling a lie. I have chosen you. And back then, and even now, I publish 3 debut authors, 3 books every year. So that's how Richa and I connected. And ever since then, her work has been bought by Bollywood, and she is writing enough stories. We have collaborated, and that's how things happen. Let me also tell you why I started Blacklink as a publishing venture. The struggle that I went through. I knew I was on roads of Delhi. I was rejected. My whole idea was that can I make the journey less bumpier for other people? That was the whole idea about it. But yeah, okay.
So, Ravinder, as you can see, Ravinder's sense of humor has been messing with me even 3 books later. Every single time I send him some manuscript, he's like, let me see. So, yeah, that sense of humor like, messes with my head every single year, but I enjoy that. And incidentally, you've eaten up my next question, Ravinder, which was I was going to ask you, saying that most writers would be very happy publishing their books, getting their royalty checks, however meager, and sitting at literary festivals and enjoying the writer's life. What
Yeah.
drove you to take on this additional mantle, as if you didn't have enough things happening? Why, like, just to touch upon it, why, what is that feeling that drove you to start your own publishing venture, and why did you
I
opt?
the last dialogue of the first Spider-Man movie. It ended, Peter Parker saying that Uncle Sam said, "With great powers come great
Comes
responsibility."
great responsibility.
That
Yes.
was the only thing. At my B school at ISB, where we were doing a lot of business proposal projects, that if people want to become an entrepreneur, what they want to do, I did this whole project about setting up a publishing house. I wanted to do that. And when I came out, I was all alone. And then at one point of time, my current publishers, HarperCollins, reached out that we want to do a collab with you on this thing. And I was like, great, let's do that thing. And there has been no looking back. I'm super
I'm
proud of the
certain.
authors who have published. The books have been doing great. The stories are super interesting. There are agents who are telling me that, can I take this to Bollywood and sell? I said, yeah, more than that. They go ahead, do that. Yeah.
And this string of authors is also proud right back. So, of you. So, since we're talking about, I think we have about 5 or 10 minutes left, Savinder, and I'm not letting you go without going through my questions and all the things I want to eat your head about. One thing I want to pin you down on is we were talking about all the love that your books get, adulation.
Yeah.
So, everybody loves it, but for someone who possibly receives about 10 marriage proposals and 500 declarations of how much people have loved their books, from men and women alike in their inboxes before they brush their teeth and have their morning tea, what role does adulation, this kind of love, this fervent love, feverish love from all over the world, does it affect your writing? Does it, create a pressure? Or how do you process it? How do you use it, to make your writing better?
Okay, it is there, but it's not this good as you narrated it. I want this good.
Writers are prone to hyperbole, na? Kam to nahi bol sakte.
Atishayoक्ति अलंकार. Yeah, no, I love all the accolades. I somehow, for me, and I mean it when I say it, money is secondary. This love is the primary. I love those claps. I love to be on stage. I love getting questions. I love people talking about the characters, and I love that when people say we love you. So I love that thing. I won't have two way about it. But what I find special is that how with words only I land up making a place for myself in their hearts. It's like I'm not there. They're not watching me. They're reading me. They're reading what's in my mind. It's such a mental connect. They're consuming my words in their privacy of their bedroom or drawing room or wherever they are reading. Maybe they are holidaying, but a part of me is with them. This whole bond between a reader and a writer, which is of words, which is of emotions, and everything goes via words. I'm not even there to correct them if they had misread something. It's a one-way communication. They can actually. So it's like once done, it's like done. I take charm in all of this. I love the fact that there are so many readers who would shower their love on me. It's a blessing. It never has bothered me. And no matter how much it comes, it still feels there is more I can offer, that there is more that I can embrace. Somehow maybe I am. The whole craving to love and to be loved back. Maybe that's why my romance works somehow. That's why they put it as that. Okay, you are somebody who is into the field and you are doing great in the field of romance. Never worked against me. Always I look forward to it. Yeah. Always will be.
That's wonderful. And because you know that emotion that you were speaking about, I read a quote recently which said, I forget who it was by. It said storytelling is a conspiracy between two minds. And it's a one-on-one, and it's such a beautiful summation of what you were saying. You've written something and somebody gets it, and
Yeah.
that communication, that cycle is complete. So that's wonderful. But now we talk about last two questions. We look into your crystal ball,
Really?
because I think you're prescient in a way, the way you conduct your life, because you're a, you've done things a little early before the trends have set in. So if I speak about various consumption formats, being a content creator, which is your new avatar for the last more than a year now.
Mm.
By the way, the Pandav video is still a family favorite.
Okay.
From the Pandavs. The You must check out his channel online. It's called Sochale, I think. Yeah, Sochale.
Yeah.
So from OTT to writing e-singles, to writing shorter formats, audiobooks, going across barriers, across borders to languages. Hell, you even made me write e-singles in a genre that I've never written in romance. So I think I think you have a bit of a clarity in terms of where the industry and where writing seems to go, because um, this is a stage of the industry where, much like many other industries, it's in a state of doldrums right now, and people's attention spans are just diminishing by the day. So, given this scenario and given your crystal ball, where do you think you're headed, and where is consumption and writing as a whole headed?
I am somebody who thinks that I am a storyteller. I am not confining myself to a format of storytelling. Of course, the genre is romance, but the format can be too many. It's just like a cricketer who plays a test, who plays a one day, who plays a T20, and maybe who knows, there would be newer formats tomorrow. So I'm sitting on content. Now, if the world is changing, if the world is evolving, I, as an entrepreneur, also. So I'm a creative person, but at the same time, I'm an entrepreneur. Every book of mine is a new startup. I will have newer ideas how to take it to a different level. I will think of the format. If there are people who would say, I cannot read a fat book, my idea would be there are lean books also. If somebody says, I cannot read something beyond half an hour, we have got e-singles. If somebody says, I I want to read, but I cannot read, but I want to consume the story, we have got audio. The whole idea is, are these formats? Internet has made so many things possible. At the click, you get an ebook now. At the click, you can actually plug your earpods and listen to a story. I want to explore more formats. What are the more ways? Can podcast be the new ways of narrating the stories? I write little quotes on my Instagram handle. I write it and leave it. It's like me saying something in the entire universe. Let this quote find somebody who wants to read, and we'll connect. And somebody somewhere on Instagram would have read that comment, landed up on my page, would have read other quotes, happened to like, chose to subscribe my handle. Someday he or she is going to read a book and we will again connect. I will make a new bond. So I see myself as a content creator, be it on Insta, be it in my books. I'm sitting on content and I want to explore all the possible formats. In fact, create new formats. That's the whole idea. I had never thought that they existed, but yeah, that's what my idea is.
And when you're talking about, you're basically you're a creator and you're creating content through the day. But when it comes to writing your books, I know you like taking your time writing your books, but do you think you're slightly more productive? Because we were talking about process earlier. Somebody asked a question. Do you think you're a little more productive when you're being pushed towards a deadline, or and in between your social media and gym breaks and posting all the myriad things you post through the day?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what is a typical day in a writing day in your life like?
So the quality remains the same throughout. And let me also answer somebody's question when somebody asks, what's the writing process? My first thing is the plot. I choose a plot where the next story is going to be based out of. It's going to be a publishing house or a Delhi university, or it's going to be set in an airline somewhere. We wrote a couple of books together, e-singles. So the plot is done. Then comes the characters. Who are going to be these characters? Who are going to be the protagonists and who are going to be the side characters? And then I will make a skeleton of it. In the first 2 chapters, I will introduce the protagonist. In the subsequent 3-4 chapters, I'm going to make them fall in love. Then in the subsequent chapters, I'm going to bring a challenge. There's a crisis. We are all trying to find the answer to this crisis, but while we do it, there are multiple sub-crises that will come. We will follow different pinpoint the sub-crisis. Something we will be able to fix, something I won't be able to fix. It will keep going on. What is the mood on which I want to end the story? All of this is a skeleton. Once the skeleton is ready, I will now go ahead and add meat to it. So, for example, how am I going to make my 2 protagonists meet? This I will leave every other thing for a later time period. My whole focus becomes how am I going to make them meet? Now, it has to be something very exciting. Something like, can I make my protagonist meet 30,000 feet above ground in an airplane? Wow, this thought. Now everything else will move around this thought. Okay, if I have to make them meet, who is traveling to which place, who is going to which place, how will they talk to each other, what will be that moment? I will then get into this and build up that particular para, that particular scene, that particular chapter, and I will move to the subsequent chapters and then treat them on their own. Yeah. And I'm also an author known for emotions and emotional endings. I would rather bring back an emotional ending, no matter how much the reader says, please this time make a happy ending. But something in me makes me think that, let me make it an emotional one yet again.
And how many drafts do you go to, Ravinder? Because I find that with every successive book, if there's an evolutionary way forward for writers, I think I'm going backwards, because every book I go to maybe 10 more drafts. So my number of drafts is increasing.
So my thing is that there will be hard 3 drafts that I would make before it goes to the editor. And after editing is done, I get another draft, which is the 4th one. And then whatever changes I have made, the editor actually sees those changes, makes another thing, and then comes back to me. So roughly a 5 draft is what happens. And before the book reaches to editor, it will go to people who I trust, somebody like you also. You would also get a draft, and you get to give me a feedback of how you feel about the story. So there are a bunch of focus group kind of people. So not 5 drafts. Yeah.
There's a very interesting question. It says, is there going to be, from Namita, is there going to be a love story and a murder story?
In a murder story, I somehow cannot even imagine remotely a murder happening in my book. I don't know. I just don't connect. I love watching murder mysteries. I am more of a guy who would make people go to coffee shops, bookstores, to colleges to hold hands. Acts. Yeah, it's back. Yeah, there was a lag. So I take inspirations from things that I have witnessed, all kinds of trauma. My father losing his leg in one car accident. Um, I losing my girlfriend in another car accident. Um, so so accidents happen very. I mean, they naturally come to me. Thank God, and I don't want this to change or jinx it. Murders are a distant thing for me. I have to I have to think that way. I don't know how I will be able to understand the psychic of what goes in the mind of somebody who actually takes away somebody else's life. Um, it's a difficult thing. So never say never. It may happen, but right now, yeah, it's kind of difficult for me to churn out a murder.
And
But
incidentally when Ravinder and I are writing together on something, he's trying to convince me not to murder people or chop off a limb or an arm because I am prone to doing that. So yeah, I guess the balance works. So as writers, I think, Ravinder, we get depleted in our minds and our hearts. So
Hmm.
it's who does Ravinder turn to, or what does Ravinder turn to replenish yourself? What is something that is a resolution to life's daily maladies for you? Is it books? Is it exercise? What is it?
Workout definitely. No matter how I'm feeling, once I get into the gym and come back, it just it just numbs me down. All that high pressure, anger, frustration, whatever it was, it just helps me. The one thing that I love about fitness is, um, end of the day, I want to look good to myself. End of the day, I want to feel fit. End of the day, I want to feel strong and do everything possible. Only that is in my hand. There are other things which for which I'm dependent on so many people, different things happening in life due to emotions or whatever. But fitness is one thing that I love. Chai is another thing that uplifts my mood. Music
Chai
is one
with
thing.
with biscuit as well.
Yeah,
Chai
yeah, yeah.
and
With
toast. Chai and
something.
burnt toast.
Burnt toast or a rusk or a cookie, whatever. But it's my go-to thing. Um, Music on some days, Punjabi music, an amazing one. So all of this uplifts my mood, and I look up to them when I feel low or even when I don't feel low.
Sure. And I think there has to be one-liners and rapid fires at the end of every session because it seems to be the trend right now. So in a line,
Huh.
for somebody who writes, is an aspiring writer or writes, what is it, that one thing that is important for a writer to remember, and what is that one thing that is important for a writer to forget when they're in the process?
Um, Emotions with which he or she is writing uh, are important as per me. What they should forget is if the last book didn't do well, forget the fact. Just focus on this book.
That's wonderful because we tend to we're such self-flagellation experts that it's hard. It's really hard. For readers and writers, both, I think, we should just let go. If you've hated a book, give somebody another chance.
Yeah.
If you've written a bad book, give yourself another chance. So it's all good. That's wonderful.
That's a one
And
line.
I must, so I must end with a question from Anika, who's my daughter, my 7-year-old daughter, who's a big fan of, you just mentioned Punjabi music. So how can I not ask this question on her behalf, verbatim? I've written it as Anika's question. Is it harder to be a writer or publisher or excellent Bhangra dancer? This is her question.
The super cute Anika. Yeah. It is the easiest to be a Bhangra dancer because I do it for my own self. Even when I'm dancing, I'm just dancing because I'm just feeling the joy. That's about it. I'm not doing it for anybody else. It is not subjected to a rating of 4.6 or 4.7 star or not. It's not supposed to become a bestseller. It's not meant to be criticized by people. I'm just doing it for myself. So the easiest thing is that. But yeah, being a writer and being a publisher comes with responsibilities. Being a publisher even more because there is now an author involved, and yet there are so many readers involved. Uh, you are making you are placing a bet on somebody else. There are more people in the whole game out there. And being an author is balance between the two, I believe. But easiest, yes. To Anika's question.
You there, so exactly. So I think I'm at the bottom of my barrel with the questions as well as Anika's. And This was a pleasure, Ravinder, which it always is. And I wish you all the luck with your current book, which is anyways flying off the shelves. And I hope you're penning the next one in between all your bhanga sessions and your protein shakes, somewhere in between.
I am,
So,
I am, I am doing that. Yeah, the response to this one has been amazing. I was just posting about it moments before I got here. People have been loving it. It's a different story altogether. And I took a good long time to write this one. It was supposed to come last year, but 2020 has been a very difficult year for so many of us, for the entire world for that matter. I'm so glad that after we brought this out, it is doing what it and it is getting what it deserves out there. So thank you so much, and what a wonderful session. Thanks to you for agreeing and always bringing this joy and uplifting the whole energy of the session, Richa. It's always a pleasure.
oh, sweet. Thank you, Ravinder. And again, thank you, Amish. Thank you for everybody who helped us enable this session. Thank you for joining us wherever you're joining us from. I'm thankful that you took out this time from your frenetic days to join us for this conversation. And I hope you are able to end this busy day, which I'm sure it's going to be, with a hot cup of your favorite brew and a good book. So thank you so much. And
Thank you.
we hope to meet you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.